Did you know there are secret weapons you can get in Grounded, ready to go as soon as you find them or get access to them? Some of these weapons you will be able to get pretty early on day one, others it won't be till end game. But these unique weapons you can pick up and start using straight away. You won't have to grow and grind resources to get them and make them later. Do look out for another video where I will guide you through the secret recipes for things like the katana, the mint mace and more, as they are recipes that unlock the weapons, but these are ones that you can utilise straight away as soon as you find them. Really designed for brand new players to Grounded, especially Game Pass core players that are playing it for the first time. Do leave a like if you find it useful, and let's go. So let's go through it from the very beginning. At the mysterious machine, I'm going to guide you right to the rotten larvae blade. Now, some of these rotten weapons I'm about to show you aren't exactly that amazing. If you come across them on day one, they're worth getting maybe, but otherwise they'll quickly be outdated by the weapons that you can craft, because each time you find one of these rotten weapons, it does give you the recipe for the full version. But there is an item that makes the rotten weapons a lot better to use, especially in the early stages of the game, as long as you're willing to do some more work in getting the berry charm. So all that's going to come clear. But you can see I'm just guiding you through, so there's absolutely no mistakes about where to go. This is one of the first weapons ever put in Grounded, so I imagine a lot of you could be skipping 30 seconds here. But basically just on the other side of the fallen log, past this field station, you should come to a small leaf next to this carton, and there should be the rotten larvae blade. It does minimal damage compared to the full version, although it's worth actually keeping this one and upgrading it at least to level 5 rather than making a new one, as it doesn't have that much of a difference in damage, only a tiny bit, and it gives you ability to poison creatures. So there it is on the map, just to show you again, just past the log. Can't absolutely miss it, and yeah, good luck getting it. You should probably be able to get this within literally the first 2 minutes of spawning in a brand new game, and you shouldn't run into too much trouble. Unupgraded, you should be able to get at least 3 ticks of poison done to a creature like an ant here, and you can see the poison is going around now, so we're nearly at the halfway point. It's not a bad weapon if you do want to go and clear out a whole host of enemies like either the mites or the ants, especially when you're dealing with more than one. But chances are you'll come across or be able to make the full version very soon, and yeah, it might be worth go ahead and upgrading that to at least level 5. Whoa. As you can see, there really isn't that much difference, a tiny little bit of damage only. Not too far away, in the general direction of the hedge and the bird bath, we're going to go and get the rotten ant club. Now this one, the difference between the rotten version and the full version is a little bit more. In fact, the full version does do a lot more damage. I'm not a big lover of two-handed weapons, so this isn't something I would ever really use unless I was going up against a creature that was specifically weak against clubs. You should be able to climb this little branch here just past the bird bath. Be careful of the all weavers. This isn't something that you necessarily want to be able to do on day one unless you've got a good grip of where the game is, or maybe you've already got yourself some armour. And you'll go into this secret little cave with a homage to the Forest survival game, which the Grounded devs really love. Upgrade rocks, of course, some lore and the ant totem recipe, but more importantly the ant club. Potentially good for taking on bigger creatures, especially if you need to stun them, and especially if you're playing multiplayer, one of you should have one of these to give some good stun while the other players get some licks in. But again, it really comes into its own once you pair it with a specific charm, the berry charm, which is up next on our list alongside the pinch whacker. So again, not too far, in fact it's almost like a loop, but you will need a grenade of some kind to actually get through this next part. We're going to be heading alongside the flower bed here near the wetlands, and you will need to also be able to build up a few millimeters high so you can get into a secret laboratory. This was added in 1.0, but for a good 2 years it was a mysterious doorway that led to an unfinished laboratory, and then it got converted into this kind of little Easter egg. Let's keep running along. You're going to have to be more careful about larvae and particularly the bombardier beetles that live alongside these rocks. And just opposite the squirt's milk carton, you should be able to see a small gap in the wall. This is where the laboratory is. Now, another easy way is to actually drop down using a glider, and that way you can literally just get in without having to build up, but you will have to climb onto the next flower bed above you, which isn't necessarily that easy. Otherwise, I'm going to be using ladders, but again, you won't have access to these unless you've already done the hedge laboratory. But you can easily go ahead and build yourself some clover ramps or maybe some scaffolding to get up here too. So you're going to need that bomb, that grenade, once you get across here to blow open the doorway. Now, to make a bomb and grenade, you're going to need some of the fungal growth, and of course you will need some ant eggs. But you'd be surprised how easy that might actually be. If you go along the edges of the haze, you can sometimes lure some of the creatures or run in and kill some of the big sort of toxic gnats that live just by the big massive rake rock. You only need 2 bits of fungal growth and then you go ahead and make a bomb. I'm using the Splatburst version here, which just means that you can make it without needing a crafting bench once you've got the bombs, and then you just blow up the doorway. And of course, yeah, you get the eggs from the red anthill. So inside you'll find the pinch whacker, one of the best weapons in the game. It is a one of a kind though, so you're going to have to duplicate one of them if you want more than one. And yeah, it's a tier 3 item, so really good. And to be super clear, here it is on the map, exactly where this laboratory is in the flower beds, all the way over to the east. So the pinch whacker is a tier 3 weapon, and once you start getting upgraded, it's just simply one of the best going. It does good amount of damage, but it also does this shock ability too, which doesn't have any lasting effects, but it does mean that you can do a good amount of extra damage. Also has a really good chance of stunning a creature, utilising it too. And now we've got, obviously, the berry charm. You can see we've got a toxic cloud appearing whenever I hit a creature, or a chance of appearing when you're attacking a creature, and you can see that poison debuff has appeared. So that'll happen every time that toxic cloud appears, and it basically will slowly deal some damage to the creature. So with the Rotten Club, it's okay, it's something you can utilise, but it really comes into its own when you use it alongside the Rotten Larvae Blade. As you can see, it's now triggered 2 types of poison and debuff damage on the creature. One from the Rotten Larvae Blade, which naturally it has, and the other from the Toxic Cloud that you get from the Berry Charm. And obviously the Toxic Cloud will only work with rotten weapons, and this next weapon we're about to get, the Rotten Bee Stinger, located in the T-Rex's mouth in the pond. Go over to the raspberry cart and then keep to the left, and you basically want to go to the furthest lily pad, or the closest one pretty much to the actual pagoda, and then you simply have to dive down. There should be some bubbles coming up to help guide the way. It is one of the deepest points and you may come into contact with diving bell spiders. You can try lure them away or using bait, or you can attack them, usually with a knife, so hopefully you've gathered and made one of them first. You can see the bubbles to the left, so I'm slightly out of position here as I dealt with this diving bell spider. Eventually through the gloom you should find the hole with the oxygen cable or the air cable going down, so keep following it and eventually you'll find the actual stinger inside the T-Rex's mouth. With a bit of practice you should be able to get this without needing any breathing gear, as long as you're paying close attention to the air bubbles as they're coming out and you stick to it as quickly as possible on the way back. Early game, a spear that does a huge amount of critical hit chance damage is pretty good. The speed of it is massive as well, as 7, and it usually has just a little bit less damage than the regular. Now, that was an older guide, but everything is still relevant, except there's only a 1% chance of triggering that extra critical hit damage. So it is good, and it can be utilised for a critical hit build, basically triggering a chance to do lots more extra damage. But I would focus on utilising it just because of the rotten berry kind of way. That's what really sells this, having that ability to poison creatures or a chance to poison them, and you've got more chance of it happening because the spear is a much faster moving weapon. So you might get 3 toxic clouds out of 1 attack or trying to kill 1 enemy like this Orb Weaver Jr. So that's all the weapons that the Berry Charm works with: the club, the Rotten Larvae Blade and the Bee Stinger. Sadly it doesn't work with the Pinch Whacker. So go ahead and upgrade the Rotten Larvae Blade and the Rotten Bee Stinger up to level 5 for sure, but I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about the Ant Club, as it's just simply slow moving enough that you just won't trigger enough of that toxic cloud compared to the other 2 weapons. In fact, once you start getting more armour later on that can do acid damage and stuff, then it's worth keeping the toxic weapons or the rotten weapons and getting them upgraded all the way up to max level if you really wanted to build a toxic build. So last of the ready-made weapons that you can get hold of is of course the Prod Smacker. This is an end game item. You will not be able to get hold of it until you've completed every single one of the mixers in the backyard. But it is a weapon that you can use straight away, so I have to include it. So I've done a more detailed guide on how to actually get the Prod Smacker, but the basis is that you complete all 5 of the lower yard mixers, which are relatively easier. There's one in the haze just underneath the deck, which you'll have to guard against the infected creatures. one in the ground floor of the corner of the hedge, which you'll guard against spiders and larvae, one inside the sandbox, which you might need to do at night time to stop the sun from cooking you, and you'll have to obviously guard against antlions. Then have one that's pretty close to the red ant hill in the grasslands, which you'll guard against mites and ants. And of course, once you start unlocking or completing these, you should unlock the mutation guard dog, which gives you more damage against creatures when you're doing a defense mission like this, or any raids that attack your base, and the final mixer defense also. And the last of the lower yard mixers has you in the middle, just near the fallen over grill, protecting it against mosquitoes and black ants. Now you'll be able to complete them with lots of defences and definitely some upgraded gear, tier 1, tier 2, maybe max upgraded, you should be able to do it. Some of the higher ones in the upper yards, they really are for late game only, maybe even unlocking cement if you don't want to spend too long having to build huge defences around. In fact, as a grounded pro, I've pretty much nearly completed all the lower yard mixer defences without any defences, any walls. But yeah, the upper yard ones, absolutely, you will need some more protection. So the one that is pretty close to the mixer, that is going to be you guarding against fire ants and some roly-polies. You then got one that's underneath the lawnmower. That again is against fire ants and roly-polies again. Near the upper pond, right in the corner by some of the brand new berry hedges, you will find another one against tiger mosquitoes and ticks. Not to mention a giant super green bug that will come right at the end. As said, I've done some more recent guides on these mixers, so go and check them out, or some of my Let's Plays to get more of an idea about what you should be doing or expect. But yeah, some of the upper yard ones, the 3 in the upper yard, are very much more difficult. Once completed, you need to head back to the Black Ant Laboratory. Hopefully you've completed this, obviously, by the time you've got through all these mixers, and you should be able to now access the doorway that was blocked off or you wasn't able to open before. Inside you find a chest for the loot, a figurine and the prod smacker. It is a strong, powerful weapon. It's got some of the best stun and best damage in the game, but you do need to hold it to utilise and get more out of it, as it unleashes a shock charge, just like the pinch whacker. Again, maybe because I just don't like two-handed weapons, it's not my favourite, and I think with all the effort that you go to, by the time you get to this stage, you've probably completed everything else in the game, and maybe this weapon just isn't worth your time. But that is the reward for completing all of the mixers, and of course, completing all the mixers is a requirement for getting 100% completion out of Grounded. Pair this with the Barbarian armour, and you've got a pretty decent big shock Barbarian build. And that is every kind of weapon that you can get in the game straight away or without having to needing to craft anything else. Of course, there are more weapons that you can unlock specifically with unique recipes, and that's going to be followed up in a brand new video. There are some different arrows and some bombs that you can get or find in chests, but as they are not really technically full weapons, I didn't think it was worth including, and some of them are random drop chances, but effectively once you go through some laboratories and find some of the chests, you've got a chance of finding certain arrows. For sure, make your way for that pinch smacker as soon as you're able to. It really does help out, and certainly having that toxic build with the berry charm I think is a really good one as well for early game. If you found this video useful, do leave a like, make sure to subscribe, go and check out all the rest of my Grounded content which I've covered for years, and I'll see you ratbags for more soon. Bye bye.